Viewer from Douglas County wants to know about the Metropolitan Council, where the Metropolitan Council gets its power and the rules that they pass and so forth. And actually, the interesting part about this question is there has been some discussion, as I understand it, on this issue in the legislature this session. Who wants to take a run at that? Anybody in particular? Senator Thompson? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think the Met Council is troublesome to a lot of legislators, maybe more so Republicans and Democrats. And there are a number of things that are disturbing. One, I believe that it is exercising tax authority improperly, taxing authority. Secondly, I think they are much too heavy-handed in pushing municipalities around. I think it's a way of filtering money from greater Minnesota into the metro area. There is a lack of oversight and accountability. To me, it is really a defective organization that is causing a lot of harm in many ways, and it has had incredible mission creep. You used to say that buses and flushes, right? And taking care of sewer, water, and our bus system, and now they're telling municipalities what percentage of what kinds of housing they have to have. It is out of control, and we need to rein it back in.
Other discussion?
I really am not an expert in this area, but I think about it, when I listen to the discussions about it, I think about it in terms of regional government, that we have a regional government in an area that also has the ability to raise revenue and raise taxes, so it is given that authority. And the struggle that we have with trying to allow an organization that is taking a look at things that go across geographic boundaries, and to be able to have some coordination in those services and those activities, and pull resources together in order to accomplish goals that benefit the whole. And I think that objective is a good one, and I'm certain that there will be a continual discussion about how that organization should operate and how it should be improved.
Any thoughts?
I would just say that in my history with this understanding, and I don't understand everything about the Metropolitan Council, but any group that gets beat up so routinely, they're either doing a lot of good or a lot of bad, and probably somewhere in between.
I think Senator Thompson expressed things very well as far as what's going on with the Met Council. I know there's a lot of concern among Republican House members.
There was some discussion early in the session about a bill that was offered. I think Senator Rest might have been the Democratic sponsor, and I think there was a Republican House sponsor dealing with Metropolitan Council members having support from the communities within the area that they represent. Is that bill still in play? Does anybody know what its status is?
It is still in play, and I think Senator Rest may well be an author along with Senator Dave Osmek.
I'm sorry, it was Senator Osmek. You're correct, yes.
And yes, the idea is that the local areas, we have 16 Metropolitan Council members, and right now they're appointed by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate. The idea would be that local governments, cities, whatever, would have input into who their Met Council representative is, and there does seem to be not total bipartisan support on that, but certainly some bipartisan interest in having that happen. Again, this idea that they're unelected, they're unaccountable directly to the electorate, unaccountable to any local governments, and yet dictating a lot of what local governments do. And this bill is, to my knowledge, Judge, still moving and has some bipartisan support.
All right, very good. Any other thoughts on that?